A Shalom Akim, Shalom, Shalom, giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Lakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth, and salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquathim and listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Raquai, and back in here with another quick and Lord's will is always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I kind of just wanted to just share a little bit of exhortation in regards to praying over your household. You know, there's a lot of different evils playing out, and recently you see there's a lot of what's it called, brewing of civil war, right? You see there's a lot of sedition, there's a lot of sentiments in regards to people having a distaste for immigration, so we're starting to see a lot of people divided once against another, right? And as the scriptures say that a kingdom divided itself cannot stand, right? So you see this playing out not just within America, Canada, the EU nations, right? There's a strong distaste towards those that are coming in, and they might be recent immigrants. And also, I'm kind of just doing this also because there was a clipping I also noticed. There's been a lot of invasions, like home invasions and so on and so forth, right? So, seeing all these things, before you leave your house, before you arrive at the plantation, wherever it is, and you get back home safely, just pray always, it's just an exhortation just to pray over, your household, right? Because we're starting to see there's a lot of evils, and that distaste for not, I don't want to say distaste, but that withering away of we're all in this together, that type of spirit, right? All these people, yes, we all bleed the same blood, and these kinds of people that believe that we're all the same and so on and so forth. But that's truly and not the case, and you're starting to see that even playing out more and more, as things become more difficult, because people, the Lord is bringing essentially a spirit of division amongst the people, right? So as a matter of fact, before I get my first precept, I just wanted to read this. Let me just read this real quick here in regards to the mentality of the people. Just bear with me on this. So this is Matthew chapter 24, verse 12, and it says, "And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold," right? And as I was reading this, I thought about if brothers have ever seen it. There's a movie called The Dark Knight, and one of the villains in the movie, in the trilogy, was the Joker. And I remember there's a scene, if brothers ever seen it, there's a scene in the movie where Joker is essentially, he's having like an interrogation with Batman in the interrogation room. And, Joker, tells Batman, he's like, yo, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. And it's true, because that's what you see playing out, right now. That second Ezra 15 playing out. You start to see that essentially Isaiah 19th chapter, where it discusses the Egyptian against the Egyptian, because as things become a lot more difficult, they're looking for people to blame. They're angry, they're on thin ice. There is they're unhinged. That's another movie as well, if brothers have ever seen it. They're on very thin ice, right? And it would take them just like that, for them to break, for them to just snap and enact vengeance. Just give me 1 second. Salakia. As I was saying, you start to see there is a withering away of their code, their so-called, morals, that was what held them together as things become more difficult. And that's one of the things, if brothers ever seen it, I would highly encourage, brothers take a look at it, and one of the things Joker also said was, okay, their morals, their code is a bad joke. And it's true, as you've seen that playing out more and more and more, that spirit of division, right? So I had a couple precepts written down, but let me just, I wanted to read this one here in Psalms in regards to your household. This is Psalms chapter 121, verse 7. And it says, "The Lord Yahweh Bashim shall preserve thee from all evil, and he shall preserve thy soul." Excuse me. And it says, "The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore." Right? So, it's just, good etiquette, just pray, before, you leave the house, because this is really and truly the kingdom that is the valley of the shadow of death, right? This is where you see wickedness is just people just living, in a very abominable state, and just pray before you leave your house, man. It's just, and then it also helps to maintain a certain level of intimacy between you and Yahweh Bashim Shai, right? Because you don't want to go through, especially in tribulation, man. Like, you don't want to be going through tribulation and you don't have that type of relationship. When you look at the nature, I'm sorry, not even the nature, but the mindset of the parable of the man and the rich fool, his mindset, his safety really was in his physical riches, right? But towards the end, as when you go through the parable, he says, as a matter of fact, let me read it. Let me just get. Okay, I'll just go straight to the point. This is Luke 12, and I'll start at verse 19, and it says, "And I will say to my soul, Soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. And the Most High said unto him, Thou fool, this night thy soul will be required of thee. Then who shall those things be which thou hast provided?" Verse 21, and it says, "So is he that layeth up treasure for himself, and not rich towards the Most High, Yahweh Bashim Shai," right? So he didn't have a rich relationship, right? You don't have a very strong sentiment, a strong amount of intimacy, with the Lord, right? Because his mind was very highly preoccupied in acquiring a lot of physical riches, like, and his mindset towards the Lord was, he was basically spiritually bankrupt, right? So shows you, the difference between the mass majority of our people, and that's really where their safety really lies. It lies in, those riches. Because, for a case in point, I think it was the rapper Rick Ross. I don't know if it was last year or a year before. He had some type of bunker or something like that. So they're following the same mindset, because they think their safety is in their physical riches, right? So I want to do The precept is, oh, okay, it came back to me. Okay, let me just get this real quick. Proverbs. This is Proverbs 21, verse 31, and it says, "The horse is prepared against the day of battle, but safety is of the Lord." Right? So, it shows you, okay, person, does their preparations and, ties their shoes, puts on their helmet, so on and so forth. But, the safety is in the Lord, right? Is it really in the Lord's hands? Right, so it's just really important, right? So before you leave your house, drive in, you put on your seatbelt, you're check your mirrors, you check your blind spots, but the Lord is the safety is of the Lord, right? That's at the end of the day, right? So make sure, it's just an exhortation, just making sure, to have that, we want to have that covering, we want to be protected, from the said evils, right? Because you see all these things come into pass, as I mentioned before, and a lot of our people, because their minds are preoccupied somewhere, they don't actually consider actually what's going on and how it directly, affects them, right? One of the interesting things is that when you go into the book of Judges, before the Lord raised up the judge Gideon, our people were being besieged by the Midianites, and basically the Midianites, they had control over the resources, right? And what happened? It got so bad to the point where they were basically kind of like famished, our people, and then they decided to call upon the Lord, right? So it shows you, it comes to, it shows you the extremes. They had to be pushed into like a really extreme situation to be like, man, I gotta call upon the Lord now. But they don't, they're kind of more, our people are more in a sentiment of ease at the moment. That's why I'm saying this, right? As opposed to, right, having that sentiment of, calling upon, turning from their wickedness and actually trying to actually seek the Lord while he may be found, as the scriptures say, right? Because there's going to be a time when you're not going to be able to have answers, and there's no answers, in the Catholic Church or these different religions and so on and so forth, right? Because the scriptures talk about how wisdom crieth and uttereth her voice in the chief place of concourse, places where traffic and business is being conducted. So you can actually be able to lead you towards proper understanding, so you can be covered, in times of wrath, right? What is that? Second Kings. Just bear with me real quick. My laptop's just a little bit slow. Okay, this is 2 Kings 19 and 15, and it says, in Hezekiah, um I'm sorry, I'll start at 14, and it says, and Hezekiah received a letter from the hand of the messengers and read it. And Hezekiah went up into the house of the Lord and spread it before the Lord. And Hezekiah prayed before the Lord and said, O Yahweh, Bashem Shai, power of Israel, which dwellest between the cherubims, thou art the power, even thou alone, of all the kingdoms of the earth. Thou hast made heaven and earth. Lord, bow down thine ear and hear, open, Lord, thine eyes and see, hear the words of Sennacherib, which hath sent him to reproach the living power. Of truth, Lord, the kings of Assyria have destroyed the nations and the lands, which cast their gods into the fire, for they were no gods, but of the man's hands, wood and stone. Therefore, they have destroyed them. Now, therefore, O Lord, our power, I beseech thee, save us thou from thy hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that thou art the Lord, Yahweh, Bashem Shai, even thou only. Then Isaiah, the son of Amos, sent Hezekiah, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Yahweh, power of Israel, that which thou hast prayed to me against Sennacherib, king of Assyria, I have heard. This is the word of the Lord hath spoken concerning him. The virgin daughter of Zion that hath despised thee and laughed thee to scorn. The daughter of Jerusalem hath shaken her head at thee. So essentially, Hezekiah receives a message, hearing about essentially Sennacherib, and this is I'm coming to essentially take you over, right? This was one of the enemies at the time, and Hezekiah, okay, being one of the righteous kings, okay, goes up into the house of the Lord, and he humbles down and he seeks the Lord, right, and actually makes essentially what you would call makes a supplication, right? As a matter of fact, let me get that. What's that word? Let me get that in etymology real quick. Supplication. Okay. Supplication. It says earnest request, entreaty, plea. It says a humble request. And the scriptures say in let me get it in the Apocrypha. One second. Let's see. Apocrypha, okay. Because it said humble request. Because we live in a time where there's like a lot of pride amongst our people. They're very prideful in their worldly understanding. They're prideful because they might have physical riches and so on and so forth. These are the things they're very, very prideful in, right? So this is Sirach 35 verse 16, and it says, He that serveth the Lord shall be accepted with favor, and his prayer shall reach unto the clouds. Okay, verse 17, and it says, The prayer of the humble pierceth the clouds till it come nigh. He will not be comforted, will not depart until the Most High hath judged righteously and execute judgment. And we're pretty much in the similar situation as Hezekiah was when you go through his story, because we have essentially a modern day Assyrian, through these different elites, these Edomites, Trump and his cronies and so on and so forth, that they're trying to essentially punish, and he's acting as the Lord's whipping stick, right? So we need essentially protection from these people, right? Because we're just merely worms. We're sheep in the midst of wolves. We're in a dangerous situation where we need help. So this is why I'm going back into the word supplication. This is what King Hezekiah was doing during his reign, during his rulership, right? Even though he was a king and he had substance, he still showed a sentiment of humility and realized he needed Yahweh Bashem Shai to intervene for him, right? So I guess I'll just read a little bit more here. Actually, I'll read towards the end what happened, and it says, okay, I'll start from verse 32 and read down. And it says, therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh concerning the king of Assyria, he shall not come into the city, nor shoot an arrow there, nor come before it with shield, nor cast a meg against it. By the way he came, by the way he shall return. And he shall not come into the city, saith the Lord, for I will defend this city for my own sake and for my servant David's sake. And it came to pass at night, an angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of Assyrians 180 and 5,000. When they rose early in the morning, behold, they were dead corpses. I'm sorry. So there were a lot of dead bodies, and the Lord came through for King Hezekiah and defended and protected him during those times, right? So, um, that's pretty much it. I didn't really, want to make the lesson too long. It's just a little bit exhortation, just being mindful of you know, seeing all these things happening. People getting their homes broken into. These spirits created for vengeance. Sedition and so on and so forth. Like there's just so much, going on, right? And a lot at some point, they're going to bring their MOTB system, right? So we all need protection from a divine source in these times, and that's something that people fail to understand, right? The scriptures say, seek the creator in the days of thy remember the creator, I'm sorry, in the days of thy youth, right? So anyways, I'll leave the lesson there, but Lord's will, as always, this lesson was edifying. Just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim El Shai. Until next time, I say Shalom.